Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Decoding Ventures podcast, brought to you by me, Dennis Lanku, and my colleague.
Suraj, today we have a very exciting topic again. Today we're going to focus on strategy in business.
Yep. So, a little bit about strategy, right? It's more the strategic practices that you want to follow to have a winning business in today's environment. So, a lot of what we're going to hear today is going to be focused around this book here called Playing to Win: How Strategy Really Works by A.G. Lafley and Roger L. Martini. And Lafley, he used to be the former CEO of Procter and Gamble. So you can definitely guarantee that everything that is in this book is pretty much a great way to start a successful and winning business. So why don't we actually start off with Suraj first and see what sort of analysis or frameworks we can apply and use in order to start winning in our chosen field of business.
Okay, so to begin things, what is business strategy? Business strategy is essentially the decisions or the plan of the sort of steps that a company can take to maximize their profits by reorganizing their operational by reorganizing their operations, by fine tuning their pricing strategy, by fine tuning their marketing. I mean, by sort of like fine tuning their operations, fine tuning their pricing. How do they essentially differentiate themselves in the market? How do they develop competency, and how do they actually survive the very, very harsh market? That is strategy. So there are many, many different frameworks that businesses can follow that would allow them to strategize better. Uh, Maybe you can walk over some, Dennis.
Sure. I'll go over the particular model that's used in the book Playing to Win. So Lafley defines strategy as a coordinated set of five choices, and those five choices being one, a winning aspiration; two, where to play; three, how to win; four, core capabilities; and fifth and lastly, management systems. So that's all fine and dandy, but completely useless if we don't explain what that means. So, winning aspirations. You could think of that as the purpose of your enterprise. What's your motivating aspiration? What's your guiding aspiration? Where to play? The playing field that you want to achieve your aspiration in. This might be the industry that you're going to work in, the particular set of business functions you might have, so on. How to win? What's your value proposition? And most importantly, what's your competitive advantage? Without the competitive advantage, you're no better than any of the other businesses you're competing in that space with. So that's a really firm requirement in order to actually win. Core capabilities. What's the specific configuration that you require in order to win? We'll talk more on that later. And lastly, the management systems. What are the measures that enable us to support our core capabilities? So that is the framework that Lafley defines. And it's easily applicable across pretty much any business, whether you're like a brick and mortar or you're starting to be more like a new technology startup, the way that we see these days. Um, so I mentioned core capabilities and how we were going to talk a little bit more about that. Uh, the most important part about your core capabilities is it also defines how you're going to operate within your corporation. What are the different structures that together synergize and allow you to really achieve your winning aspiration? uh, let's say you are you're like Gillette, and you're you have this branding that signs you as okay. They're well known for men's grooming products. That's great, but unless you have proper branding set forth, a marketing strategy, and an appeal to consumers so that they feel and understand your brand, so that when they walk into a store and they see your product on the shelf, that they're more likely to pick up your product than any of the other products around them. All these combined together have to reinforce one another, and that's what should be part of your core capabilities. Siraj, you have anything to add on to that?
Yep. Um, so
Yeah, it's a very dense topic that we're trying to pick apart and make easy for you lovely viewers to get your feet wet in strategy.
okay, so I would like to go over Potter's five forces. Essentially, Potter's five forces is used to analyze an industry's attractiveness and likely profitability. It was published in 1979, and since then it has become one of the most popular and highly regarded business strategy tools. So essentially, the five forces are competitive rivalry. Essentially, what this talks about is it looks at the number and strength of your competitors. How many rivals do you have? Who are they? How are the products that they produce different from the products you're producing in terms of the quality, in terms of cost? Um, when rivalry is very very intense, when there are too many companies competing in the same space or making very similar products, the companies have to make aggressive price cuts, and um, they have to really do like very high impact marketing campaigns in order to attract the customers who at this point have the luxury of choice to choose between so many competing brands. The second force in deciding the attractiveness and profitability of a brand is supplier power. This is determined by how easy it is for the suppliers to increase their prices. Essentially, if you as a company you have access to a wealth of suppliers, that is the best scenario. That means uh, you can make better and more better negotiations on the prices for the goods that you're procuring, um, and it yeah, obviously you have the option of switching between suppliers. Now buyer power is here you have to ask yourself how easy it is for buyers to drive your prices down. Meaning, if you have fewer pool of buyers, that means the buyers have more power than you. If you have a very very large number of buyers who are buying your product from you, then you have the power. Since you know that if a few of them leave, you still have a large number of buyers who will still buy your product. The fourth force is threat of substitution. It is the likelihood if your customer is finding a cheaper way or some other means to do the same thing that your product is doing. For example, let's say you build out you build out a management tool that allows you to track development. um, let's say your company doesn't want to buy let's say some company doesn't want to buy your software and instead wants to manually track their management, their developer management. Then in that case they're bypassing your product by very easily, um, and in a cost effective manner for themselves. In that way you have to think, okay, how do I position my product such that companies would be dependent on my product for some part of their business? Or if it's a consumer product, how do I make it so unique, so effective that people cannot people cannot live without it? Then there is the threat of new entry. Um, so, what happens if a new company with a unique way to solve the problems that you're solving enters the market? How easy it is for them to get a foothold in your industry or market? How much would it cost, and how tightly is your sector regulated? So, yeah, these five things essentially are very important things to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. And uh, what I like about Porter's Five Forces is it's very nicely interwoven with the way that Lafley defined strategy, where he has the set of five choices, specifically falling into the last two with the core capabilities and the management systems. Because, well, I would also add in how to win as well, because the core way really of winning when you're in a space is what is your unique competitive advantage compared to your competitors, right? And so you mentioned with Porter's Five Forces that there's the threat of substitutes, which you can totally demolish your business if what you're trying to do essentially is just uh, being reactive rather than proactive. And you, if you don't have a combination of unique core capabilities that all work together to add into different uniqueness, you're gonna fail. You can't bank on one particular unique thing about your business and hope that that's what you can use to win consumers over, because it's not going to work. Anybody can just drop in anytime and just pick up the belt and run along with it, and you'll be running after them for pretty much until your stock dribbles down to nothing and you have to exit the business.
One fine example of this would be the exchange industry in cryptocurrency. Um, at the peak of the bull run, or just before the peak of the bull run, there were a few exchanges who had gathered critical mass in terms of user base. And now we have like 500 or even like 600 crypto exchanges, and each one issuing out its own new token for users to come use their exchange. But a lot of them are not even having the sort of volume that they could. So it's a very saturated space now, having your own crypto exchange. Uh, Likewise, like ICOs, the reason that whole burst happened was there. It just got too inflated. Everyone wanted to start their own token, and there's no real utility. And now even those new entrants who really thought, okay, we're doing something new, we want to do an ICO, are not getting the money that they wanted to get. And maybe there were genuine cases of companies that could have benefited from an ICO, but uh, probably the burst that we saw with the whole ICO thing was a fine example of how easy it was for new entrants to come in, and for new entrants to sort of spoil the ecosystem and spoil um, the access to capital for new businesses or existing businesses, even.
Yeah, absolutely. And uh, hopefully, uh, with how the market is really saturated, that uh, both enterprise and retail and consumer are seeing that that's an issue, and that it's organically going to start fixing itself as people start to figure out, hey, you know what, it's not profitable for there to be 700 different exchanges offering their own tokens that are just completely useless for the most part. So uh, between, in the short term, long term, we can only see definitely better moves for consumers trying to get into the crypto space as things get a little bit more regulated and less wacky.
Yeah, most definitely.
Hmm.
Um, I, I think regulation by itself does that. Like it reduces the number of new entrants and the ease of entering into a particular space. Uh, More regulated space have fewer players. It's hard to get licenses. For example, let's say you pick something like online gambling, which is very, very regulated around the world. There are few companies that operate at scale because it's so hard for new entrants to just come in and start their own online gambling um, business.
Yeah. And I know Suraj is he's very much into the online gambling business. So we may have a future podcast that talks about that, ways that you can get into the space, potential pitfalls that you may run into. So look forward to that. That'll be a lot of fun. Okay. So are there any closing thoughts that you want to leave with the viewers before we end?
Oh, actually, I wanted to go over price quality matrix to optimize your product pricing. So
Yeah.
pricing is a very, very interesting strategical decision that any organization must make because this dictates how profitable you will be, or this sort of dictates how unprofitable you will be. And you only get a few chances at price. If you roll out a certain price at launch, and let's say it didn't work out for some reason, or there was a mismatch between the quality being offered versus the price that is put out, people are going to leave and people are not going to look back at your brand. They're going to be like, okay, these guys, they overcharge. Or in the case where the quality is very good and you are not charging enough, let's say you sold a bunch of units, you have exhausted your manufacturing capacity, but didn't even break even, then it's a bad move. So, how do you optimally price? What are the different parts of a pricing matrix? So, essentially, when viewing the price, you have to look at the price versus the product or service quality. So let's say the price is high and the product or service quality is high, then what you have on your hands is a premium product. It's a high quality product that is matched with the high price. So you will find luxury buyers or certain kinds of buyers who can afford the product that you're selling. Now, what if you have high price, medium quality? Then you're overcharging. Even if the product's quality is sound, it can be tricky to sort of elevate the price beyond the uh, quality that the product is offering. Uh, so I would caution to tread carefully. Now, if you have a very high price and very low quality for your product, you're basically ripping people off. And anytime a company rips off people, there is no going back. People will not ever consider you again. There is this thing that's sort of like inbuilt in people's mind when they hear your brand's name again. They will be like, okay, this brand, yeah, they rip people off. I bought this and it was atrocious for the price I paid. I'm not going to ever buy from them. Which is essentially why uh, companies start to do this thing where they offer superb value, which is essentially they give you high quality products for low prices initially. So this helps them reach critical mass, like get the users, get customers, and sort of build this loyalty. And then they can sort of um, elevate and promote themselves into becoming high value providers where they charge medium price and the quality of the product is high. Um, Now you may not be necessarily very profitable by using this high value strategy because it's of high value to the customer, but to yourself, you'd want to adopt something along the lines of medium price, medium quality. So this means essentially that the value of what the customer receives is the uh, quality of the product. They're in sync. Um, Essentially, you're strategizing your operations, uh, your technology in building this product in such a way that you're more efficiently producing the product and you're pricing it adequately. Uh, Again, there could be a false economy wherein there's medium price for a low quality. This is getting very close to the ripoff territory. Um, However, it's not as bad. There is sort of going back after you have sort of developed a false economy. Um, Another sort of practical strategy is to use a good value strategy, which is essentially where you have low price and medium quality. Consumers are always on the lookout for an affordable quality product. To foster long term loyalty, having good value is also valuable. And of course, now let's not forget that there are low quality and low price products. Now, a fine example of this would be Spirit Airlines. A very, very cheap airline gets the job done, low quality, but customers know that, and customers take it because of the low prices. So that's a wrap on the pricing matrix. But think very strategically about how you're going to price your product. You only get one chance or a couple of chances. If you ever go the ripoff route, I'm sorry, there is no going back. Definitely start with an average or a good value sort of strategy, and then build up to one side, wherein you reduce the quality a little bit and the price. So yeah, that's a wrap on the pricing strategy.
Yeah. I'll just add on a little bit more to the end there because you brought up spirit, and so you got me thinking about how uh, if you want to stay in the space for a long time and not sort of just hit it and quit it like certain companies do, it's important to have some transparency with your consumers so that like in Spirit Airlines case, they know that they're a budget airline. Their Spirit's not trying to lie and say, "Hey, look at us, we have, we're offering something premium to you." That's not the case. They know they're saying, hey, this is for the value oriented customer. You get on the plane, you get off the plane. We don't have like, too many fancy things that you have to pay for your check bags and your carry-ons and all that. But like you mentioned, there's so many customers out there that flock to Spirit because they say, hey, you know what? It's a low attractive price. I need to get from point A to point B. This will do me just fine. I can suffer for that, 1 to 3 hours, and it's not a big deal. So having that transparency is really important if you want to stay in the space. Yeah.
And essentially, pricing is also how you're developing your niche in the market. For example, Spirit Airlines is very different to something like I would say like Emirates for executive travelers. So yeah, it's how you're developing your niche in the market.
That's right. Absolutely. Okay, so that was today's podcast on Decoding Ventures on the topic of strategy and winning your business. So I'm Dennis Lianku and my colleague Suraj Sina, and we'll see you next time.
See you guys. Bye.